Welcome friends to the 36th module of AI. In this particular module, we are going to have a glimpse of a topic called machine learning. Machine learning is a very different kind of domain today. A lot of experts believe that is already a domain, but it's evolved from expert systems. Remember our discussion on neural networks. Neural networks actually is the first thing that we had in machine learning. Machine learning, if you want me to define machine learning, there are a few ways to do that. It connects AI with other domains, that's one. It's a computerized system which can learn on its own, is the other definition that you probably get. It's the program which can look at patterns in data and get knowledge out of it, or get something called machine intelligence out of it, or the system which looks at the examples and derive meaning out of it. But then you won't get a very clear-cut definition of machine learning. In fact, in my own opinion, it's very hard to define machine intelligence. But then machine intelligence is about programs which can learn looking at the examples. For example, a spam filter. A spam filter is one which learns, because once there is a mail which you believe spam, you just say that it is spam and it learns about that. When there is a mail which is non-spam, you say it is a non-spam, it learns about that. Over a period of time, if you have seen in the last 5 years, the spam filters have become so good that they are able to identify mail spams from non-spams in almost every time they are right. Almost 99.99% accurate. What does that mean? This is a domain where, and in fact, let me ask you a question. Can you define a mail which is spam? You try doing it, you realize that it is not. You can give some examples, like a mail contains word like offer, or a mail contains some lucrative things. Do this and you get this, you get 30% discount or 50% discount, which tries to catch users to fall into some trap or something like that. Then that look like a spam. But then what you're doing, you're just giving examples, you're not defining it in true sense. So there are a lot of such problems. For example, the same problem is also happening with intrusion detection. Okay, how you say that this packet is malicious, or this packet is not, or this user is doing something malicious and this user is not? You can't define it actually. You will have to give examples that this is malicious and this is not, and let the user decide it. One more example. Suppose if you want to write a program which decide looking at a photo, the program decides whether this person is smiling or happy or unhappy. Now, if you want to define what is happy and what is unhappy, it is almost impossible, almost next to impossible for you to do that. Point is, again, you can do that. You can show an image that this is happy and show an image that this is not happy, and you just provide enough sufficient number of examples and assume that program will eventually learn about the difference on its own. And that is machine learning. So this is basically a machine learning program, and that's how you start with. Anyway, machine learning begins with knowledge representation. In fact, machine learning, you'll have to define the content, because you like to get meaning out of it. You have to go for a machine representation which gets derived meaning out of it. You need methods for knowledge representation, you need methods for inference, you need heuristic. Okay, and the problem with if you do it manually, for example, if machine learning is done by expert, if the administrator has to look at network logs, for example, will continuously looking at network logs and decide which packet is malicious or not, will have to, poor administrator has to wade through that jungle of network logs, will never be able to come out. In fact, every day the network logs will be generated to the extent that a single administrator will not be able to wade through that in his own lifetime. That many amount of data is generated, is almost impossible. So machine based, the manual system is pretty slow. Not only it is slow, it is also tedious and error prone. Okay, so it is quite possible that if an administrator has to look at 5,000 packets every day, it is very likely to miss out on one which is really malicious. The second issue is that updation will be almost impossible, will be equally slow. So that is the other problem. So it is better if this thing is replaced by an automated system which looks at network logs and figure out what seems wrong and what is not. Also aggregate things. For example, there is a warning about one particular attack 1,000 times, so you don't need to have 1,000 logs for it, 1,000 row alerts for it. You just have one entry and telling that is happening 1,000 times. That's good enough. And if a single process is being reported by multiple places that this user is doing something malicious, you can replace all those entries by one entry says that this user is reported 25 times for doing something malicious. Now, if you consolidate things like this and correlate them properly, you will not only reduce false positives and negatives, but administrator will require much lesser time to go through it. So machine learning can be very, very useful in such cases. Machine learning is learning by machine. So we'll need to define what do we mean by learning. So you just remember what we discussed about learning in neural networks. Probably the same thing is here. Supervised, unsupervised learning also happens here. Supervised means you have input and output both, and you just test whether a machine has learned properly. In case of unsupervised, you don't have the other part. Okay, so that is also there. Spam checker is one example, and intrusion detection system is the other example. And there are a lot of programs today which, for example, genome mapping that's happening recently. If you have heard about genome mapping project, was taken by not less than 13 countries. It took around 13 years. 50 to 60 countries participated in it. It costed around $60 billion. And then US president announced that we are successful in genome mapping. I was surprised to find that one company in Pune could do it in 3 days time using conventional servers now. And why they are able to do it? Because of the machine learning algorithms that they have developed. So that is the power of machine learning. Okay. So this learning process is learning from these huge data, and they learn some pattern out of it. They exactly like neural networks were doing, derive those weights. Okay, so they learn things out of it, and given that this genome mapping program can predict what is possible, what's there in store for you in future, whether you are going to have blood cancer what are the chances that you will have blood cancer at the later age. If you remember that Angela Jolie's case, that's because of that genome mapping. And a conventional MI program becomes better and better over the period of time, given more and more training. You probably have seen these spam filters getting smarter and smarter. First challenge that they have is they have to deal with voluminous data, huge amount of data, like network logs or doctor's information, patient information coming from IDSs, information coming from hospital records, information coming from the patient database, information coming from research labs, information is coming from pathology reports, and many things here. So whole data is coming in and you are processing them. Or some other case like crowdsourcing, whether you would like to figure out whether one party is going to win here or not. You're looking at Facebook posts, you're looking at Twitter messages, you're looking at what people are writing in their blogs and so on and so forth, and you get all that information correctly. You just look at the patterns and decide whether X party is going to come to power or Y party is coming to power, and so on and so forth. People have done that. Or you do something called sentiment analysis. You learn about, look at the post and decide whether the person, and people have done this. So looking at the post, it decides that this person is under depression and requires medical help. Okay, so that kind of thing is also possible, because it has looked at many posts in the past and learned about this thing, that such post indicates depression. So that is also done. So kind of thing is done. But in that case, you will have to look at so many posts and detail about what people have done thereafter and all that, and that data, unless you have sufficient amount of data, you won't have that level of conclusion, and even that conclusion, you don't have that level of confidence. There are a lot of learning issues here. The first thing, that there are two phases in machine learning. First, you will have to have collection of knowledge from various sources, and then you have to assimilate that knowledge in proper form. And this is critical because, for example, if you are getting data from Facebook post, how will you store that thing in a database record? Because database record, you will have different fields, and this thing is to be identified as a typical field and to be inserted there. So that kind of thing is pretty hard. For example, if you're getting an address, but you don't know which part is which, now you have to find out which indicates which, whether this thing indicates city, whether this string indicates country, and so on and so forth, whether this indicates the name of society and all that. So that kind of mapping also is to be done. So these are challenges, and it has to remember this induction is very important. Even generalization that we have studied also is required here. Spam filter we have already, and it's similar is the case with other domains. Now machine learning programs usually label the inputs. For example, spam filter inputs is this thing, that spam and non-spam. If you have looked at how Gmail is doing it labels it as promotional main, and so on and so forth. Okay, so it labels into 5-6 different possible labels. It's also possible that there is an image is available and the program is trying to discern whether this image is about our product or not, whether this any relevance to what I am looking for. For example, it looks at the post and decide whether the post is about my product. Once it is so, you may try to figure out whether this comment says that my product is good or whether the comment says that my product is bad. Okay, I'd like to learn about the user feedback using those posts, and probably this thing is going to help me. Okay, and we have already seen false positives and negatives. That is one very critical thing. So whatever you do in machine learning, false positives and false negatives will almost always comes into picture. So that is to be understood. And confidence level, how confident you are. For example, once I say that there is a likelihood of intrusion, how confident I am. Okay, that's called confidence level, and that again is based on experts' intuition and judgment. Such type of performance measures are also important. There are three ingredients. One is this performance measure. The first one are examples. Second is this performance measure. And the third one is the problem itself. So the problem, the yardstick of some sort, a performance yardstick, and the examples are three things which are readed. One researcher says that these three things are readed, and it's quite logical as well. We've already said that supervised and unsupervised learning are very critical parts of machine learning. I want to discuss about supervised and unsupervised learning in a little more depth now. We have already seen that we have training, testing, and generalization. That happens to be there with neural networks. There's also here. In machine learning also, you have some training data where you allow machine learning program to learn, then you test, and once it is fine, you can say that it is acceptable. For example, and usually that is done over some data sets. For example, in intrusion detection, we have a data set called KDD Cup. It contains huge amount of data, and if I want to test my new intrusion detection algorithm, I write this algorithm and test it on this data, and that data will be able to, the result will be able to tell how good my program is vis-a-vis other programs, because a lot of other people have also tested their programs on this. Once they have tested their programs on this and their result is 70%, and my result says that I am able to do it to 80%, I can definitely claim that my program is little better than theirs. So that is one very critical thing. Generalization obviously is very, very important. How good your solution is for unseen inputs. Okay, if it is better for unseen inputs, definitely yes, it has better utility. So that is also very important. So this is the other thing which is important for machine learning. So with this, what we have done is we have understood what machine learning is, and what are the challenges involved, and what are the consequences of doing something with machine learning. Now we are going to look at some of the machine learning approaches. The first approach is based on Bayes' theorem that we have already seen. Remember, we have looked at character recognition case. So we look at some of the symptoms and decide whether the character is A or B or C. Okay, so here they are called classes. If it belongs to class 1, it is A. If it belongs to class B, it is class B, and so forth. So in Bayes classification, what you do is actually, when you calculate PB, basically what you do is you calculate the probability of this character belonging to a typical class. So when I have an image and I say that there is a possibility of this image to be A is 0, B 0, C 0, D 0.001, C 0, 40, I 0.5, J 0.7, and so on. This may not be 0.5 and 0.2 and something. So once I get that, I can easily understand that the highest possibility is I. So I'll accept that. And sometimes it's called generative model. In generative model, you just find out the probability of incoming thing belonging to every possible class and will pick up the case of highest value. And I'm not here to describe that generative model in more detail, but this is the way it does. The other model is called discriminative model, which actually looks at the attribute and decide whether it is this or that. For example, if I get a packet and I find that the sender's address and destination address is the same, I identify that as a lend attack. Now that is identification. This identification is based on the value of attributes. So once the value of attributes are used to decide what it is, it's called discriminative. So we are this Bayesian, this is called naive Bayesian classifier, the one which I'm talking about, which is based on Bayes formula that we have seen earlier module. This is the first thing that we have to do. The other one is called hidden Markov model. Now hidden Markov model is something where there is some part of the system is hidden from us and some part of the system is visible to us. For example, if I'm writing a program which machine learn the speech, for example, speech to text conversion. So what you're supposed to do, you're just listening to the speech and figure out what is spoken. Somebody speaks AI, you would like to figure out whether it is A and I what. And if I if it is so. But I don't have the information about what is being exactly spoken. What I get is the voice. I don't have the A and I. Okay. So once I get that information, the voice, I'll have to get what is spoken. Okay. A and I. Similarly, when I listen to, for example, I listen to some music, I'll have to figure out what is being played. Okay, which key, for example, somebody is playing piano. What I get is a voice, and from that I'll have to determine which key is pressed. Now, in this case, I don't have information about keys. I don't have information about the written text which is being spoken, and I have to get them. The information that is being typed in, or the information being spoken, they are called the values which are the states which are not known to me. And what is available to me is called observations. Observations are solely based on that. For example, something is being spoken. I listen to that, I get AI, then I understand to be A and I is spoken. So this A and I is solely responsible for what I heard. But then this AI obviously has some relation between what is spoken before and after. But the observation which I hear, AI, only depends on what is being spoken there. So that space which is hidden from me is responsible for the observation that I have. Okay, and that's why this is called hidden model. Okay, why it is called Markov model, there is a reason. I'm not going to discuss about that, but that's why it's called hidden. So that part is hidden here. So in Markov model, hidden Markov model, there are two things: states which are not visible to us and observations that they generate. So what I have sequence of observations. Do you expect me to do? Once I have sequence of observations, I must generate the sequence of states. That's the problem that I want to solve. Okay, so this is a hidden Markov model problem. So basically what actually is done, the user who is going to change from one state to the other, or the whatever system which generate this does change from one state to the other, and some observations are generated from it, and they are observed, and from that you will have to figure out what is being done there. Okay, so that kind of mapping is to be done. And sometimes these states are called labels, and what is being produced is called label sequence. So you have label sequence, you have observation sequence. You cannot see what label sequence is. You only can see the observation sequence, and you'll have to predict what label sequence is. Remember, labels are dependent, maybe dependent on each other, because when I speak AI, probably I'll say we are learning subject called AI. So they are this, whatever I am speaking, they have some dependence on the other. But then the observation, when I hear AI, it doesn't really dependent on other labels than what is being spoken. Okay, so that is very important here. HMM can be done using this thing. In fact, we are not going to study how HMM is actually being done, but basically it learns about this. The process is this: how you get labels from observations, and it happens in both cases. It happens in some cases you have both of them, and you make the machine learn about how this is done, and you do it for all other cases as well. Supervised model, and it is also done in unsupervised fashion as well. You sometimes use clustering for, if you want to do unsupervised learning. A great solution is called K-means algorithm. So we'll talk about K-means algorithm next, but then there is also a thing, there is something called learning about concepts. When you want to learn a typical concept which is not simple, for example, I'd like to find out a concept called retaining an employee. I want to retain an employee. I don't really know how to retain an employee. I would like to learn that concept. I'm an HR manager. If I want to learn that concept, probably I have some pre-assumptions. It's called hypothesis. So my hypothesis says that if I give an employee for a single foreign trip with a spouse after 3 years of service, or I pay fees of 2 of the kids of the employee, and so on and so forth. These are called motivational strategies. So I decide the set of motivational strategies, and I want these motivational strategies to retain my employee. My hypothesis is such that this motivational strategy is going to help this particular employee to stay longer in my company. Now this is my hypothesis. So whether my hypothesis is true or not, if my hypothesis is true, I have learned that concept. So this learning concept is also very critical machine learning program. What you're supposed to do in this case, you'll have to look at the data about employees, their characteristics, and their own family situations, and a lot of other things. For example, foreign trip probably is not very attracting for a single person or an old age person. So that is not very attractive. Even that school phase, if somebody is unmarried, there is no point, or there is an old person who has grown up children, then for him also this strategy is not very attractive. So point is, you'll have to have attributes of employees which are matching with this policies, and for which policy which employee is affected and all that. These are critical thing that you would like to learn out of the data that you have. So once you get the sequence of that data, okay, and you get some relation between them, you probably will be able to come out with some hypothesis which is correct or near to correct. So this is precisely what is learning about concepts, and this can be extended by that. There is in fact one more method which is being used is called decision tree. Decision tree is kind of an if-else structure. If you do this, your employee will be able to retain longer. So the first part which I said can be implemented using neural networks, but the second part can be implemented using rule-based systems which we talked about. For example, if you give a foreign trip to married person whose age is between 25 to 45, then is likely to be retained in the company longer. Okay. And there is a suggestive evidence 0.7 that a person will be retained in this company longer. Okay, which I add that uncertainty part in it. So this is an example of the concept that you learn out of it. So that is called learning concepts, and machine learning is a great thing possible to be used. The clustering which I've started talking about, K-means algorithm, happens in a very simple fashion. And clustering algorithm is unsupervised learning. For example, there are a lot of packets coming in, and I know that there are 3-4 types of attacks. I would like to segregate these inputs into the 3-4 types of attacks. How will I do it? I'll just decide these 3-4 types and then let every packet come in and then randomly add them into this 4 or 5 whatever types of attacks that I do. I have n attributes of the packet. Based on that, I am storing them in an n-dimensional space based on their attribute value. Now, whoever is nearby is one group, and what you do is you just find out their distance to the center of their class, and based on that you decide the average distance from that center of that group. Now you look at again for every node which represents a packet, how far they are from different classes. If it is nearer to some other class, now it becomes the member of that class. So in the second phase you do this and redo it, you recalculate this cluster. Now obviously you are doing it better, so the cluster becomes smaller and smaller. Eventually, hopefully, you will get clusters which identify attacks. Basically, this K-means clustering algorithm clusters the inputs into n-dimensional space where n are attributes, k groups where k are the classes in which you want to divide them. So clustering is again a very important approach for machine learn. We have an algorithm also available. There is something called deep learning which has become very important today. There are programs like from Google also. There is a program which can look at the figure and can tell you what is the color of the tail of a cat, or what is the color of a tennis player's hat, and so on and so forth. A lot of things are happening. In this deep learning process is basically an extension to our neural network design. Here what is happening? Every layer is learned separately. Now this is different. Every layer is learned. Once one layer is learned, it is clamped, fixed. Second layer is learned, then it is clamped and fixed, and then the third layer is learned and all that. What is happening here is that unlike backpropagation algorithm, backpropagation is not proven to be very successful in a multi-layer case, huge number of layers, because it tend to, like other layers tend to not participating in the process, only few layers tend to participate, and it was very slow when a lot of layers are involved. So new algorithms are designed, a lot of people are coming out with their algorithms. In a very new phase, a lot of things are happening, but this is very critical also. So what does this do? These algorithms are able to train every layer in a way that they learn and collectively suggest and provide intelligence of this sort. Deep learning is very critical, and deep learning is something which is very important today. So that's the end of this module. Let me recap what we have seen in this module. In this module, we have looked at machine learning, we have looked at the components of machine learning, what machine learning requires, we have looked at some of the well-known approaches to machine learn, including Bayesian, the Bayes classifier, and concept learning and deep learning and all that. With that, we conclude. Thank you.